I'd sat through hundreds of development meetings with my uncle, but this one would be the last I'd attend, as the version of myself I had been for over a decade. It was a Thursday. We were reviewing the Bayview Market site timeline when he looked up, calm, professional, and said, "Leona, you're not leadership material." I blinked, thinking I misheard, but he continued, "We've officially transferred 75% of Darnell Urban Design to Tyler. He'll step in as managing director next quarter." No explanation, no warning, just a sentence, delivered like a lunch order. I stared at the Gantt chart on the screen like it might explain something he wouldn't. My chest tightened. But I didn't speak. I didn't ask why. I already knew. Tyler, with his slick confidence and empty calendar, was visionary. I was reliable, tireless, grounded. Just not captivating. The rest of the meeting blurred into static. Notes on account shifts, a new design initiative, marketing pivots. I nodded when expected, jotted down tasks I wouldn't follow up on. Back in my office, I closed the door and sat in silence. The hum of the ceiling light felt louder than it should. I stared at the dark monitor in front of me. 10 years. 10 years of first in, last out, late nights, missed holidays, all traded for this. An erasure dressed up as a decision. I opened the bottom drawer and looked at the small bottle of whiskey I kept for long days and difficult clients. My hand hovered, then paused. I didn't need to numb this, I needed to remember it. The moment, the sentence, the betrayal. Because the next move wouldn't be theirs. It would be mine. I thought back to crawling under my uncle's workbench, the smell of drywall and cedar on his jeans while I sketched on old floor plans. I could read blueprints before I learned cursive. At 11, I ran reception. At 15, I shadowed walkthroughs, asking questions he once said made him proud. "Leona's got the instinct," he used to brag. Until the day he forgot. She could spot structure inside chaos. He used to say that about me, and I believed him. I gave up a full scholarship to Virginia Tech to stay close, enrolling at Coastal State instead, majored in construction management, graduated top of my class, turned down 2 offers from major East Coast firms. Darnell Group was the legacy, I told myself. Stay, build it. So I did. For over a decade, I was first in, last out. I ran payroll, onboarded every intern, renegotiated contracts after Tyler abandoned his app startup and came home needing a fresh start. I worked through bronchitis, 2 breakups, and the hurricane that nearly took out our central servers. I was consistent, dependable. Vacations became theoretical. Weekends turned into inbox marathons. I poured myself into the business because I believed eventually it would pour something back. My name wasn't on the building, but I thought maybe it was in the bones. Turns out I wasn't building a legacy. I was holding it up. Until the real leader showed up. Tyler returned from Miami with a duffel bag, a buzz cut, and 3 new tattoos. His startup had tanked. Pivoted too late, he explained, like failure was a feature, not a flaw. Our uncle welcomed him like a soldier returning from battle. "He's got vision," he told the team during Monday's meeting. "Big picture instincts, new energy." No mention of the debt collectors or the silent investors still texting my aunt's phone. Just a second chance, repackaged as innovation. 2 days later, he was named Director of Strategic Initiatives. No duties, no reporting lines, just a corner office, a new chair, and his name across from mine. Meanwhile, I kept the lights on. Approved bids, rewrote safety protocols, tracked budgets, walked active sites in steel-toed boots. Every invoice still came to me. Every client complaint landed in my inbox. Tyler spent his afternoons ideating. His slides looked great, full of buzzwords, vertical disruption, client-embedded feedback loops. I once caught him Googling what a punch list was. Still, our uncle nodded like he was watching brilliance unfold. I said nothing, kept it moving, fixed what he broke, quietly, always quietly. No one thanked me. Tyler got a glowing feature in Southeast Builder Weekly, My aunt said he was finally stepping into his potential. My uncle called him a natural leader. And me? I was just the project manager, the scaffolding they leaned on. Until they decided they no longer needed the structure beneath it. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Not until the filing cabinet betrayed me. We were prepping final paperwork for the city inspector on the Bayshore redevelopment. One of the zoning permits was missing. Again. I headed to the back records room myself. Ever since Tyler's efficiency overhaul, nothing was where it used to be. Labels had been swapped. Logical groupings shredded. Cabinets half empty, full of nothing. Half an hour in, I opened the wrong drawer and found a folder labeled Legal Confidential. Internal transfers. Not what I was looking for, but something about it made my fingers freeze. My gut already knew. The first page hit like steel to the sternum. Transfer of ownership, Darnell Group. Effective July 15th. 75% to Tyler Darnell. 25% jointly retained by Franklin and June Darnell. No mention of me. Not as a shareholder, not even as staff. I flipped through every page, all 16, looking for a clause, a side note, a reason. It was clean, deliberate, signed, witnessed. Fine. I didn't hear Marisol, our office manager, until I saw her reflection in the cabinet glass. "You shouldn't be in that drawer," she said softly. My voice barely rose. "Did you know?" She hesitated, then looked at her shoes. "Your uncle said he'd tell you when the time was right." I held up the folder. "It's been 6 months." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. I walked past her in silence, the folder clutched like evidence in a trial. I didn't go back to my office. Didn't grab my laptop or coat. I drove home with the truth buckled into the passenger seat like a witness. And for the first time in over a decade, I didn't set an alarm. The smell of roast chicken greeted me at the door. My aunt's version of diplomacy. Feed first, deflect after. But everything felt misaligned, like someone had tilted the frame and insisted it was straight. Uncle Franklin sat in his usual spot at the head of the table, reading glasses low on his nose, flipping through Tyler's latest strategic plan. Tyler stood at the kitchen island, sipping a glass of red, like this wasn't the quiet collapse of a decade's worth of effort. "Leona," my Aunt June called from the stove, voice overly bright. "Just in time. Sit, relax." I nodded, set my bag down, and watched the performance unfold. Tyler launched into some vague spiel about digital outreach and brand elevation. My uncle nodded like he was witnessing a revolution. I heard terms like next-gen positioning and stakeholder alignment before I stopped listening altogether. I waited until dessert, until the cobbler was plated and Uncle Franklin leaned back, satisfied and full. Then I pulled the folder from my purse and placed it in the center of the table. Silence. "What's this?" he asked. "You tell me," I replied. "Found it in the legal drawer. Confidential." His eyes dropped to the tab. I saw it. A flicker of something. Guilt? Or just annoyance at being found out. "I was going to talk to you." "When?" I asked, voice flat. "Before or after the press release? You handed my birthright to Tyler and didn't even tell me." My aunt's hand froze on the pie server. Tyler's smug smile evaporated. Uncle Franklin set his fork down slowly, like the weight of it had changed. "We thought it was best for the company." "No," I said, pushing the folder toward him. "You thought I'd stay no matter what." I stood, grabbed my coat, and walked out. The folder stayed behind. I didn't return Monday. Or Tuesday. No one called. Not even Marisol. Maybe they thought I needed space. Or maybe they knew. By Wednesday, I logged into my email, hopefully for the last time. I drafted my resignation with the precision they used to praise me for. Effective immediately. Please direct all matters to Tyler Darnell. No sign-off, just Leona. Then I set my out of office. I am no longer available. If you've ever been underestimated or quietly pushed aside, subscribe now, because Leona's just getting started, and in the next chapter, the ones who erased her will discover she never needed their permission to lead. Then I shut the laptop and slid it into my drawer. That night, I drove to the Darnell Group office long after everyone had gone home. The parking lot lights stretched shadows across the asphalt, and I walked through the quiet building like I was visiting a ghost version of myself. I packed only what was mine: a few notebooks, a framed photo of Luna, my rescue mutt from college, and the tiny potted cactus that had somehow clung to life for 5 years, despite fluorescent lights and chaos. I left the awards, the ergonomic chair I fought for, even the monitor I upgraded on my own dime. On my desk, I left a single note, perfectly centered under the Darnell Group plaque. Let your leader handle it. I dropped my office keys in a plain envelope marked H. No signature, no closure. When I stepped through the glass doors, I didn't look back, but I knew they'd come looking the moment things cracked. By Thursday, the emails started. A junior coordinator forwarded me a thread titled, "You Gent Anderson invoice rejected." I read it, archived it. I wasn't their safety net anymore. Grant's assistant called next. "Hi, Leona, so sorry to bother you. Mr. Grant was hoping to clarify a few line items on the Redfern site budget. He said you'd know." It wasn't free. I was done. By Friday, murmurs began. Anderson might walk. Maxwell Grant was fuming. Site leads were flying blind. Invoices sat untouched. Colby called an emergency meeting that spiraled for 4 hours with no outcome. Still, I said nothing. Every ping was a quiet reminder they'd built a castle with no architect. I didn't need revenge. I just had to be absent. That's what made it elegant. Saturday evening, Maxwell called my personal line. "Leona?" His voice clipped. "I've worked with the Darnells for a decade, but you've always been the reason I stayed. I'd like to understand." I played it twice, then muted my phone. Later, another message. My father's voice, tight, tired. "Leona, Grant's threatening to walk. Colby's out of his depth. We need you in the office Monday. Please." Just a click at the end, nothing more. No apology, no ownership, just panic. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop for the first time all week and began outlining my next move. Not for them. I started with the budget's 10 years worth of spreadsheets, forecasts, and margin reports layered with my formulas. Then came the project timelines, Gantt charts, delivery schedules, subcontractor pipelines. Every system I'd built from the ground up. Next were the client files, not the contracts, but the intangibles, preferences, pain points, their kids' names, the kind of trust no CRM could manufacture. By Sunday night, I had over 20 pages. I titled it Operational Legacy, Leona Darnell. No proprietary data, just the framework, just the proof. Monday morning, I drove across the river to Whitmore and Sloan, our once rival firm now leading the green build market. Their managing partner, Helena Whitmore, greeted me with the kind of handshake you only offer to someone you're already betting on. "We've followed your work for years," she said, flipping through my portfolio. "Frankly, we're surprised Darnell let you go." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The offer came quickly. Chief of Field Operations, full autonomy, profit sharing, 8 weeks off annually, mandatory. I told her I'd review everything with my attorney. That afternoon, I met with Michaela Tran, my college roommate turned employment lawyer. We spread the documents across her dining table. She marked clauses in red, flagged vague language in blue. "This is clean," she said. "Better than most. You've got leverage." I nodded. The woman I used to be might have hesitated, still craving validation. But not anymore. That night, I emailed Helena. I hadn't signed yet. But my hands didn't shake when I typed, "Let's discuss this over lunch." So I wasn't surprised when the doorbell rang. Thomas Darnell didn't knock. He never had. He stood there in a polo and pressed slacks, tension in his shoulders and a familiar manila folder under one arm. No small talk, no smile, just desperation. "We need you back," my father said, folder in hand. "Delano's threatening litigation. The crews are scattered. Your brother's in over his head." I stepped aside to let him in. not out of politeness, but because I wanted to hear every word of the pitch. He laid it out like a transaction: raise, title bump, bigger office. Chief Operations Officer, he offered. Full autonomy, we can lock it in by Friday. As if the past month hadn't happened. You want me to clean up the mess? I asked flatly. I want you back where you belong. I folded my arms. Then, here's what I want. He blinked. 40% ownership, board seat, binding vote rights, and a written, enforced 45-hour work week. If I'm rebuilding this company, I said, I'm not burning myself down in the process. He stared like I'd just spoken a foreign language. That's unreasonable. No, I said calmly. What was unreasonable was expecting me to do all the work without a seat at the table. You'd risk everything over a number? I'm not risking anything, I said. You are. He didn't argue, just stood there, folding the edges of his offer back into the folder, finally realizing the leverage had shifted. You have 48 hours, I told him. After that, I signed with Edgewater and Lowen. He didn't say goodbye, just left. At noon sharp the next day, I walked into the Glasshouse Bistro. My mother, my father, Colby, and our lawyer were already seated. Harold slid the agreement toward me, but I raised a hand. Colby's eyes met mine. I owe you an apology, he said, voice low. You made it look easy. I thought I could fake it. I was wrong. My mother nodded. We all were. Then Dad cleared his throat. I thought you'd always be there, he said. That was my mistake, my father said. I didn't flinch, didn't smile, just laid it out. I want 35% ownership, transferred from Colby, equal board votes, co-leadership, operations for me, creative for him, and I want a 45-hour workweek policy for all execs in writing. Harold, our attorney, nodded and slid the draft across the table. Those terms are reflected here. I read every word, no emotion, just clarity. Then I signed. Colby followed. My mother. Finally, my father. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was honest. For the first time, everything was in its place. 1 month later, I walked into Darnell Group, not as the backup plan but as Chief Operating Officer and co-owner. My office wasn't flashy. It was functional. It was mine. I rebuilt operations from the ground up, streamlined reporting, restructured the field chain of command. By week 3, client response time was up, site delays down, and staff turnover slowing. Colby stuck to his strengths: clients, pitches, handshakes. And when he didn't know something, he asked. That alone told me everything had changed. After a board meeting, Dad lingered. You were always the leader, he said quietly. I just couldn't see it. I didn't thank him. I just nodded and walked out. If Leona's story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support reminds me that quiet strength is worth sharing. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in my shoes? What have you built when no one was watching? I spent years proving myself to people who never looked. But here's what I've learned. You don't need permission to lead. Just clarity, courage, and the conviction to take the first step. If you're holding things together behind the scenes, don't wait for recognition. Build your own foundation. Then, when the moment comes, walk through the front door like you own it.